Hi there. My name is Bilal, and I'm with my partner Yo. That's him.
What's
And today we'll be talking about exchange rates.
specifically about the possible disadvantages and advantages of high exchange rates. So, what are the possible advantages of a high exchange rate? First of all, there's a downward pressure on inflation. If the exchange rate is high, then the price of the finished imported goods will be relatively low. This is mainly because if your exchange rate is high, then you can buy things at lower prices because, for example, if your exchange rate was say €1 to $1.5, for example, and your exchange rate becomes higher, and instead it becomes €1 equals $1.78, for example. And that means you have, well, if you are in the European Union, then you would have more purchasing power because you can actually buy more now. So instead, if you had something that cost $15 from the US and you wanted to import it into the European Union, then you would not have to pay 10 euros, but you'd have to pay less. And that would be 8.43 euros approximately. So as you can see, you bought this item for much less now because your exchange rate is higher. And what this does is would also decrease the price of imported raw materials that are used to make finished goods in your country. And that means that eventually the cost of production for firms, domestic firms, would be lower, and so the costs or the goods prices will be much lower for consumers. And this means that this also puts pressure on domestic producers to be competitive by keeping prices low. Another advantage to a high exchange rate is, as mentioned before, that more imports can be bought. The exchange rate, when it gets high, you can buy more technology, machinery, and invisible imports, just foreign travel people going to other places.
With the same amount of money, of course.
So a high value of currency forces domestic producers to improve their efficiency. So what does that mean? The high exchange rate will basically threaten domestic producers' international competitiveness because they'll be forced to lower costs and become more efficient in order to compete with the other firms. And you have your products, as mentioned before, imports would be cheaper, but on the other hand, exports would be more expensive to other countries to buy from you. So if you have a product that is 15 euros here, then obviously compared to when the exchange rate was $1.5, it'll be much more expensive for people outside the country, for example, the US, to buy from your country in the European Union.
Alright, now I'm going to talk about possible disadvantages of a high exchange rate. Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is the damage to the export industries. If you have a value, your exchange rate is high, then your export industries of your country will find it difficult to sell their goods and services abroad because their prices are relatively higher compared to others, because other countries have less buying power, so they can't purchase as much of the goods and services that your country makes. And eventually this will lead to unemployment because the export industries won't be able to afford that many workers if they're making a lot. Now the second one I want to talk about is the damage to your domestic. Because the value of your currency is great, it means that you have a higher purchasing power, as mentioned before. This means that foreign goods and services are relatively cheaper than domestic goods and services, so people would favor to buy exports rather than imports. And again, this will lead into unemployment as a result of this because the domestic market will not be able to support so many workers, so they will have to make cutbacks to account for their losses.